By any measure, Geoffrey Rush has made a remarkable contribution as an Australian actor, both at home and abroad. In terms of accolades, there's nothing more to be said, really. He's one of a handful of actors, and certainly the only Australian, to win the Triple Crown of awards, the Oscar from Hollywood Television's Emmy, and last year Broadway's Tony Award for his role in Exit the King, with Australian director Neil Armfield. It all begs the question of what continues to drive him, because here he is in his 60th year, with 3 films and 2 theatre productions already up for the year, another 2 films in the pipeline, and various other projects in the works. And one of those films is the first film of a Patrick White novel, Eye of the Storm. This week, with long-time friend and director Neil Armfield, he opened in the revival of an old favourite, Diary of a Madman, at one of the world's smallest theatres, Sydney's Belvoir, while at the same time promoting his latest film, The King's Speech, about the eccentric Australian who cured the stammer of King George VI. I spoke with Geoffrey Rush at the Belvoir this week. Geoffrey Rush, you're in your 60th year. You've done it all by any acting standard, and you seem to be working as hard as ever, if not harder. Are you working as hard as it sounds, or is it illusory?
Look, it's partly illusory, but I am aware the last 2 years I've probably been hammering it, burning it a bit at both ends. Mainly because fabulous stuff came along. And I've started to get engaged more and more with a little more conscious creative control.
When was The King's Speech shot?
The script was plopped onto my doorstep in the beginning of 2008. So the turnaround on it was quite quick. I declined the offer to be in the play for logistical reasons and whatever. But I phoned my LA agent and said, look, I've just read this extraordinary story. You may or may not have heard of the fact that George VI had this debilitating stammer. I knew all of that history. I had no idea about this guy called Lionel Logue, who's the kind of a failed Australian Shakespearean actor from the 1920s, 1930s, who, because of his elocution work and the fact that he loved doing recitals of poetry readings and whatever, he knew about the voice and he knew about breathing. And when all the shell shock victims were coming back through Perth and into Adelaide in the First World War, everyone sort of said, hey, Lionel, you know a bit about this. These blokes can't talk, you know. Can you help them out? And he started to develop, through diaphragmatic breathing and releasing tension, etc., and the beginnings of a sort of, I suppose, embryonic Freudian psychoanalysis, he started to help a hell of a lot of people. So he went to England, I think, partly to want to become an actor, but ended up putting his shingle up on Harley Street.
Well, please don't do that.
I'm sorry?
I believe sucking smoke into your lungs will kill you.
My physicians say it relaxes the throat.
Well, they're idiots.
They've all been knighted.
Makes it official, then.
He was quite capable of and determined to actually take on the king at a certain level.
Ah, yes. Well, I certainly knew, however he sounded, or whatever kind of, you know, Australian or cultural manner he might have had, I knew that there had to be this rather breezy, egalitarian, there's no bullshit here, Mr. King, you know, because part of his therapy was he knew that unless the patient really committed to wanting to tackle the stammer, that he would never have the results that he knew he could achieve, that he had achieved with kids in the East End or returned soldiers or whatever. So getting the king to come to his rooms, and the basic rule was, this is my castle, my turf, my rules. And his methods were, for the time, I mean, now they're highly regarded as standard practice. But there were lots of breakdown games of, you know, physically loosening people up in a way that a royal who would be living under the 5-pace rule that no one's allowed within 5 meters of them or to touch them.
And up comes Her Royal Highness, and slowly exhale, and down comes Her Royal Highness.
All right, Bertie. It's actually quite good fun.
Mother.
Shorten the humming each time.
Mother.
Manufacturing.
The theatre was where it all started for you in Brisbane 40 years ago. Last year, you climbed one of theatre's great pinnacles with a Tony Award for Exit the King on Broadway. Will you ever forget that opening night?
No, it was amazing. And it was, the true sweetness of that event was not only that we had packed out houses and it was an acclaimed production within the season and everyone was buzzing, and we were thrilled because not only was it an Ionesco play, it was an obscure Ionesco play, but I'd always followed an instinct that the Manhattanites would get it. I've just sat in enough audiences there and I thought, a wild, slapstick, hilarious, poignant, tragic play about dying, they're going to love. And they did. And, we got multiple nominations for the Tonys, and I won one, and it was just great to be an Australian theatre company, pretty much one of the first. I think, Baz Luhrmann had taken his La Boheme from Opera Australia onto the Great White Way. But I think we were the first theatre company to cross the pond.
Arise!
I'm arising.
See how easy it is?
See how easy it is? You're a pair of Bolsheviks, terrorists. No, by myself. I can do it on my own.
It's such a sharp contrast between the Broadway hit with the audience queuing 3 and 4 blocks, city blocks around the corner, and then coming back with the same director to a small Sydney backstreet theatre. How have you found that contrast?
I don't really differentiate because in a way I just see that what's happened in this building over the last 25 years, even before my time in film, I've had the fortune to be in some productions here like Hamlet and The Alchemist, where, it involved people like Hugo Weaving and Dan Wiley and Rebecca Massey, and
there's been such a rich stream of people through this place,
Richard Roxburgh was in the Hamlet, Kate Blanchett was in it, and even in those pre-film days where people had only a profile within the theatre community, we did have people sleeping outside the building to get into the only available 320 seats, which was, it's a great. It really uplifts you when you think that there's a hunger there for people to. They've sought something out actively.
And somewhere in all of that, you go back to playing a pirate with all the digital tricks of the 21st century. You're still enjoying Captain Barbossa, because you've said yourself that after the first 3, you thought you'd extract, or that they had extracted, just about everything there was to say about pirates. But I guess you're a key character in a blockbuster.
Yes.
It's become a multi-billion-dollar product. You don't say no.
Look, at the scale of it is huge. It's also a very big family now, because we've all been working together for 8 years. And, above and beyond the nature of whatever the franchise is, there are some tremendous, really gifted artists, like the director of photography, who's a Polish-American guy, Dariusz Wolski, is absolutely at the peak of his artistry, he shoots those films on a level that I think are quite beautiful. Even the camera operator is an artist in his own right, and a very significant impact on the film. And they'd gone from the swashbuckling and the curse of the first film into sort of Wagnerian dimensions with the Kraken and sea goddesses and all that. And I thought, they've gone off the end of the world. They've done everything you could do. I hadn't thought about mermaids. We've got mermaids in Pirates 4, plus a whole lot of new characters. The mermaids are fantastic because they are beautiful creatures of the sea that lure the sailors in, and then they suddenly turn into piranha. They just tear ships apart and they're feral. It's very exciting. The plot is very good. It takes place in Georgian England, and you sort of see visually it looks completely different to the other films. It was great to work on.
Now, I'm allowed to ask this question because I'm ahead of you in these stakes. Have you got any sense of age catching up? Because even if memory starts playing nasty tricks and your body begins to let you down in other ways, perhaps you're one of the lucky ones to be in a business where ageing can actually have the same impact as it does on a good wine. What do you think?
I suppose it's more noticeable on this because I'd done it the last time I did this play was 18 years ago. But I remember even then, when I was 40, I still had to have a 50-minute nap before the show. I'm quite fit. I'm lucky. Someone the other day said, "Oh, you must go to the gym every day and get ready for this role." And I said, No. Doing the role is like going to the gym. If I went to the gym and did the role, I'd fall down in a heap. I'm lucky. I think I'm naturally quite fit. I notice a few little extra aches and pains here and there, but you learn how to pace, I have a little meditative sleep before every show and, try not to let my life socially get too out of hand.
Geoffrey Rush, thanks very much for talking with us.
Thanks, Kerry.